The monitor flatlined at 3:07 a.m., but the real death had happened 23 years earlier. I know because I was there for both. The first was my grandmother's last breath. The second was mine, metaphorically speaking, in a hospital corridor as my brother Stephen patted my shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Margie, Dad and I will handle the will. You just get the house ready for the funeral reception." They walked away, already talking percentages, while I stood there, my coat still smelling of her lavender sachets and unspoken confessions. The third death, my resurrection, began right then, though it would take me 2 more years of silent servitude to act on it. My existence had become a series of catacombs I maintained for others. There was the medical catacomb, a color-coded binder with my father's cardiology reports, my mother's allergy lists, David's sleep study results. There was the social catacomb, a mental calendar of birthdays, anniversaries, obligatory visits, the delicate politics of which cousin to invite for Christmas Eve. Then the deepest catacomb, the business. Hartwell and Son sounded robust, traditional. In reality, it was a leaking ship I'd been bailing out since I was 19. Stephen's big ideas were expensive disasters, the ill-fated expansion into boutique logistics, the custom packaging line that broke down weekly. My father's old-school charm no longer landed contracts. My role was to translate Stephen's chaos into coherent spreadsheets, to soften my father's bluster in follow-up emails, to quietly correct the decimal points before invoices went out. The night of the voicemail, I didn't just hear David's words. I felt them click into place, like the final tumbler in a lock. A dumb appliance. It explained the way they'd look at me when I solved a problem, not with gratitude, but with the mild annoyance of someone who just found a missing remote. "Oh, there it is. Back to work." But the true catalyst, the spark that lit the fuse, came 3 days later. I found a folder in David's office, misplaced and left open. It wasn't for work. It was for a holiday. A lavish 2-week safari in Kenya. Brochures, quotes, itineraries. My heart did a stupid, hopeful little stutter. A second honeymoon? A recognition of my years of strain? Then I saw the sticky note. In Stephen's messy scrawl, "Dave, Mom and Dad are on board for their anniversary gift. Can't believe we're surprising them with this. Thanks for managing the funds." The funds. My funds. The family vacation pot I'd been nurturing for a decade, squirreling away bonuses and tax returns, dreaming of a Mediterranean cruise for all of us. They drained it. For a gift for my parents? A gift I was not part of, not as a recipient, not even as a planner. I was the bank, the silent, dumb appliance that dispensed cash. That night, I didn't pack a suitcase. I packed an archive. I took the deed to my grandmother's secret safety deposit box, the key I'd worn on a chain under my clothes since her death. I took my separate passport, the one David mocked me for renewing. Where are you going to go, Margie? I took the external hard drive with my personal writing, my freelance client list, my true identity. I left my wedding ring coiled in the soap dish, a tiny golden O, a 0. My escape wasn't a clean cut. It was a slow, deliberate exsanguination. I didn't go to the budget hotel immediately. I became a ghost in plain sight for one final week. I performed my duties, but I began to selectively erase knowledge from my performance. I forgot to renew the business insurance policy online, only leaving a paper reminder on Stephen's desk. He wouldn't see. I misplaced the password to the cloud storage where all our family photos were backed up. I gave my father the slightly wrong dosage instructions, then clarified them with a call to his doctor, who chided me for the error. I was carefully dismantling my own legend, making them question my competence for the first time. When I finally left at 3:17 a.m., the silence was a physical thing. In my cheap hotel room, I didn't sleep. I began to write. I wrote down every slight, every taken-for-granted moment, every time my opinion was dismissed as overly emotional, every time my labor was reframed as someone else's idea. The document grew to 50 pages. It was not a manifesto of hate. It was a forensic audit of my own erasure. It was the most alive I had felt in years. The initial messages were demands, then came the pleading, then the threats. David, day 10. Margaret, if this is about the Kenya trip, we can talk about it. This is childish. You're embarrassing me. Stephen, day 12. The bank is calling about the overdraft. What's the authorization code for the business line? This is financial sabotage. My mother, day 15, voice message, trembling. Margaret, your father is very ill. The stress, you need to come home. Whatever you're going through, we're family. We'll fix it. That last one almost broke me. The hook of guilt was buried deep. But I played the message again, and I heard it. Not concern for me, but the panic of a system failing. We'll fix it, meaning you come back and fix it. I deleted it. My new life was built in the negative space of my old one. In my tiny studio, I learned the rhythm of my own desires. Did I want coffee now or tea? Did I want to watch a documentary or bad reality TV? The sheer overwhelming freedom of inconsequential choice was dizzying. I reached out to one person from my past, Leo, a graphic designer I'd done freelance bookkeeping for years ago. We'd always had an easy, respectful rapport. Over a cautious coffee, I gave him the bare bones. I've left. Everyone. I need work, but it can't be traceable. Leo didn't ask for details. He simply nodded. I know a few people. Good people. They need what you do. They'll pay fairly, and they won't ask questions. This network of small, creative studios, a bespoke furniture maker, an indie video game developer, a collective of documentary filmmakers, became my new ecosystem. They valued my precision because it freed them to create. My invoices were paid on time, with notes like, "You're a wizard, Maggie," or "That spreadsheet saved our sanity." With my first real paycheck, I bought a terrarium, a small glass globe. I filled it with moss, tiny ferns, a miniature figurine of a woman sitting on a rock. I would stare into that self-contained, thriving little world and whisper, "That's me. I'm in here now." The reports of the collapse were more spectacular than I could have imagined. Alina, now my confidant and self-appointed intelligence agent, brought me updates like rare stones. The business insurance lapse meant a warehouse flood from a burst pipe during a cold snap Stephen hadn't prepared for was not covered. The loss was catastrophic. My father, trying to step up in my absence, had driven to a supplier meeting against doctor's orders. He'd suffered a minor stroke mid-negotiation. The humiliation, for a proud man like him, was reportedly worse than the illness. David's mother's visit had descended into legend. Without me to buffer, David's neglect of the house became glaringly apparent. A leak under the sink had led to a mold infestation. His mother had left early, publishing a thinly veiled complaining post about being a burden in a house falling apart. His social facade was cracking. But the most delicious failure was Stephen's. In a desperate bid for a quick cash infusion, he'd used company assets as collateral for a short-term, high-interest loan from a private lender, a man with a dubious reputation. The loan was to fund a sure-thing import deal. The shipment, of course, was delayed in customs indefinitely. The lender wanted his money. The threats Elena heard through a friend of a friend were no longer financial. They were selling things now. Mother's jewelry, the antique dining set, the vacation home I'd managed. Each sale was a public sacrament of their failure. When the letter from Crowley and Vance arrived, the world shifted on its axis. My grandmother's secret wasn't just money. The cottage was filled with her and with hints of me. Books she loved that she'd recommended to me, a recipe box with notes in her hand, Margaret's favorite, add extra cinnamon, and in a locked writing desk, a journal. Her final entries were addressed to me. My dearest girl, I see you fading. You are becoming the wallpaper in their house. When you read this, I hope you have finally torn yourself free. The cottage is quiet. The garden is wild but willing. It's waiting for someone with a patient heart to tend it. That was always you. The financial transfer was swift. The legal shockwave it sent through my family was seismic. The expected lifeline was not just cut, it was revealed to have never been theirs to hold. My father, I learned through a terse legal forward from their lawyer, had screamed at the reading of the codicil. That woman always undermined me. He meant Grandma, but the truth, the glorious, awful truth, was that she had simply seen me. The fallout was immediate and total. Stephen's shady lender, hearing of the lost inheritance, called in his markers with extreme prejudice. The business was shuttered overnight, assets seized. My parents, with their credit annihilated by co-signing Stephen's loans, received an eviction notice from their upscale retirement community. They moved into a cramped, dark apartment in a building that smelled of boiled cabbage and regret. David finally sold our house, but too late. The market had dipped, the mold issue had to be disclosed. He walked away with nothing. His professional reputation in tatters after missing a major deal and lashing out at colleagues. The photo Elena found of him was from a professional networking site he'd forgotten to delete. He looked hollow. A year in the cottage. I learned the names of things. Foxglove, lady's mantle, the specific chirp of a goldfinch. I expanded my freelance business, now consulting for small nonprofits, helping them build sustainable financial models. I found power not in being needed, but in being chosen for my expertise. Then, one rain-slicked afternoon, a car pulled up the lane, an older, rusted sedan. My mother got out. She stood on the gravel, looking at the cottage, at the blooming garden I'd resurrected. She looked 10 years older, her posture defeated. I watched from the window, my heart a cold, still stone. I did not go out. She walked to the door, hesitated, and then slipped a folded piece of paper into the mailbox. She stood there for a full minute in the drizzle, looking at the door, perhaps hoping it would open. It did not. Finally, she turned and left. The note was on cheap lined paper. Margaret, your father is in a state. Stephen is gone. We don't know where. I am sitting in a silence so loud it hurts. I think I understand now, a little, what you must have felt. The silence. I am sorry we were the noise that drowned you out. I am not asking for anything. I just wanted to say that. Mother. I held the paper. I felt no triumph, no softening, just a quiet acknowledgement, as if observing a distant weather event. The apology was for her, not for me. A final piece of her own emotional management. I burned the note in the fireplace, watching the words curl into black ash. It was not an act of anger, but of closure. Their chapter was ash. Mine was written in living green and blooming color. Today, I am in my garden. Leo and Elena are visiting this weekend. We're building a new studio shed for my pottery wheel, a hobby I discovered I love. My terrarium sits on my desk, now home to a small, thriving orchid. The silent gear is now the quiet humming engine of a life I built with my own hands. Their world collapsed, not because I pushed, but because I ceased to be the foundation. I ceased to be the absorber of shocks, the translator of failures, the silent financier of their dreams. My revenge was my absence. My victory is my presence to myself. The greatest twist wasn't the inheritance. It was the realization that I was never the supporting character in their story. I was the protagonist in my own, who had simply been reading from the wrong script for 23 years. Now the pages are blank, and I am writing every word. The silence I left behind was louder than any scream I could have uttered. If you've ever been the silent gear, the invisible force holding everything together, drop a comment below with one word that describes how that felt. Unseen. Taken for granted. Exhausted. You are not alone. This story, the story of Margaret's reclamation, is a testament to a simple, brutal truth. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful action you can take. For more stories about the strength found in quiet exits and the beautiful lives built in the aftermath, hit subscribe. Before I explain how their world completely shattered, I had to show you the meticulous, painful process of her unbecoming, the dismantling of the person they expected to make space for the person she was always meant to be. Thank you for listening. Remember, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Cultivate your own garden. Until next time.